Hi, and welcome to the Fighting Words Northern Ireland podcast, where we interview members of our teen writers group, Write Club, to find out about their writing inspiration, their top tips, and to hear some of their work. Write Club is open to all teens in Northern Ireland who like to write or would like to give it a go. We meet online and in person, and we welcome all story writers, poetry writers, playwrights, or any other kind of writing you can think of. We're a free drop-in club where you'll get support and feedback from the club mentors and members if you would like to share your work. I'm Kelly McCaughrain. I write novels for teenagers, and I'm a Write Club mentor. And today on the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Josh, who is 17 and is going to be telling us about his current project and how he approaches his writing. Hi, Josh. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, it's great to meet you today.
You can start by maybe telling us about the kind of thing you like to write.
Well, I mostly I enjoy writing sci-fi set in futuristic scenarios where something like tech has progressed too far, something's gone wrong, like dystopian, that kind of thing. I find it very interesting to see how humanity reaches a point like that and developing the history of these futuristic worlds.
Wow, is that the kind of thing you like to read, Josh?
Yeah, I also like to read stories set in more futuristic environments as well. I guess that's where I mostly get my inspiration from. So.
Brilliant. And do you have a story that you're working on right now? Could you tell us a bit about that?
I kind of have three main projects at the moment that I switch between, but the one I'm going to be reading today is a story about an astronaut who goes on a research mission to another planet, like an interstellar system, and it goes horribly wrong. And it's just the first page of that story.
Fantastic. Is that something that you've planned out, or have you just started it?
I actually started this a couple years ago, but I didn't really know where it was going. But since then, I've developed the story a lot more, and I have a lot more ideas for it. And I just want to see where the story goes and how people react to it, which is probably why I'm here today.
Fantastic. And you mentioned that you've got 3 projects on the go at once there. Is that, do you like to hop between projects?
It's not at once. I usually work on something for like 3-4 months and then switch to another one, and then I work on that for 3 to 4 months, just whatever I have the most inspiration and motivation for at the time.
Fantastic. And who or what inspired you to start writing? Where did it all begin for you?
Well, I guess I've been writing like little stories, little short stories since I was a really little kid. But for me, the main my main foray into writing, I guess, was when I've always loved drawing like maps and designing fantasy worlds and stuff. And I guess my first foray into writing was taking one of the maps I had written and deciding, hey, I'll write a story about this. I'll create a characters and populate this world and just see where it goes. And that ended up being 300 pages long. So, yeah.
Fantastic. That's such an interesting way to begin, with a map. That's a great idea. Mm-hmm. That world building must be so difficult in things like fantasy and sci-fi. Do you find that enjoyable?
Oh yeah, no, world building is absolutely my favorite part of the whole story writing process, because I know you're shaping a whole new world in a way, which may or may not be inspired by real life, but it's kind of like that sense of freedom and power it gives you that's just really, really invigorating,
Yeah, fantastic. So you've just joined Write Club quite recently, Josh, and it's been great to have you. Do you find being part of a writing group quite helpful for your writing?
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, I don't really hear many people's stories that are similar to mine, but I have learned actually quite a few tips about character development from the other members. So yeah, it is. I would say it is really useful to be able to share your stories and get feedback and learn from other people's writing. So yeah, it's amazing. It's a very, very good thing.
That's great. I think you can learn so much from other writers. I'm going to ask you now if you would read us some of your work, and then we'll talk a bit more about how you approach writing. So you said you've got the first chapter of your latest story for us. Is that right? What's the story called?
It's called The Wanderer.
Brilliant. Well, I'll let you go ahead and read the first chapter then.
Okay, thank you. The radioactive dust blew past the wreckage of a spaceship lying on its side in the yellow dirt. The once sleek titanium hull creaked and moaned as the planet's ferocious wind slammed against it, the sand and dust it carried scratching up the plastic glass window to complete opacity. No sound could be heard from inside, and it was hours later, once the storm had died down, that something inside the spaceship awoke. Rebooting exosuit CPU, suit AI online, life support systems online, initiating emergency medical scan. Vitals normal, suffered minor head trauma, initiating planetary environmental scan. Error, scanner damaged, planetary data 79% corrupted, extracting non-corrupted results of scan. Location, Kepler 249b, 30.4 degrees north, minus 45.2 degrees west. High uranium concentrations detected in local geological masses. Ionic beta minus radiation protection activated. Local time, 8:19 a.m. External temperature, 238 degrees Celsius. External background radiation, 6.7 sieverts per hour. Chance of survival, 15.3% and falling. Administering wake-up agent. Slowly, the pilot of the spaceship raised his head and opened his eyes. He climbed out of the cockpit chair and stumbled, still dizzy, across the floor of the cockpit towards the hatch that will lead outside onto the planet's surface. He grabbed the handle and pulled upwards, and the plastic glass roof swung outwards, letting the astronaut step outside and onto the surface of the planet. He gazed out at the alien landscape for a minute or so, then reached upwards for the button on the side of his helmet that would activate the built-in audio log recording feature. He pressed the button, a small electronic chime sounded, and the astronaut began to speak. Audio log entry 037D526/702.1. Well, I'm alive. I probably won't be for very long though, so I'm recording an audio log so that when, if someone ever finds me, they'll know who I was and what happened to me. My name is James Newford. I'm an engineer serving as part of the support crew on the ISV-37, or Seeker, an interstellar space vessel visiting star systems, exploring their planets and moons, and cataloging flora, fauna, minerals, environment, and so on. It was 2 years through our 3-year mission, and the Seeker had just warped to the planetary system orbiting the red dwarf star Kepler 249, which contained 3 uncontacted terrestrial planets. I was chosen, along with my friend Simon, as part of the research team that would go down to the planets in the system to explore and catalog them. You can imagine my excitement when I was chosen for the mission. Every other D-class on the ship dreams of something like this. D-class, that's me, non-essential support crew. Basically just one of the other 600 or so losers sleeping in cramped dormitories in the lower decks, doing mundane maintenance or repair work around the ship, dreaming to be selected for one of the exploration missions where the real excitement was. The real reason you got in the starship in the first place. This should have been the greatest month of my life until everything went wrong.
Josh, that was fantastic. Thank you. I love the way you use the ship's log to tell the story. That's such an interesting device. And that last line really hooks you right in. I would definitely read on. Thank you so much. Do you tend to plan your stories in advance, or do you make them up as you go along, or do you do a bit of both? What works for you generally?
I usually do a little bit of planning beforehand. Like what I actually do is I tend to write the first page or first chapter and then plan the rest. And then if I like the idea, I plan the rest of it and then I continue writing. And I just wanted to say, you mentioned like the ship log thing. This book was actually kind of inspired by found footage movies. So I was thinking of like writing a found footage book where it's all audio logs, video logs, ship logs, just big pieces of information and recordings that people have found and compiled together into the one big story. So that was the idea behind this style of writing.
That's such a great idea. I've never seen a book done like that before. Just little scraps of information. That would be so interesting for the reader to have to piece those together. And I'm sure that would be really fun to write. Are you enjoying it so far?
Oh yeah, it's very, very fun to write. I have to do a lot of editing because I'm personally, I love science and mathematics and all that stuff, and I would love to go nuts with all the pieces of information like about the planet, all the little bits of scientific information and stuff. But to be honest, that would make more of that would make more of a table and or like a statistics kind of thing. Then that wouldn't make a very good book, to be honest. It'd just be data, you know. So there's got to be an actual story. So I have to
Yeah,
edit a
well,
lot of it out.
I guess that's the challenge, to take all those little scraps of records and ship logs and turn them into a readable story. That's going to be a really fun challenge. I can't wait to see how you handle it. So I know that you also have been publishing your work online for a while. Can you tell us a bit about how that works?
Oh, well, actually, I was working on another story for a while, but then I realized that I didn't actually like where it was going, and it wasn't, I didn't even really know where it was going. So I've decided to take it down off the website I was posting it on and just do some editing, rewrite things so that I know where to continue from now on. I know where to go with the story. But I usually use a website called Inkit, which is actually it's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Wattpad, but it's similar to Wattpad, except you can actually, or at least I heard that you can actually get your book published and have publishers contact you through Inkit, which it sounded very appealing to me because I ideally want to get my books published eventually. So that seemed like a good option.
Yeah, that sounds like a great way to start. And how did it feel to know that there were people out there reading your stories online? Did that inspire you to keep writing?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's actually very, very stressful because it's like, oh, I want to be able to release these regularly so that people don't get all annoyed because they have to wait too long. But then again, I don't want to rush chapters because then they drop in quality. You know, it's I actually think releasing it chapter by chapter isn't an entirely it's great to get feedback as you write your story, but it's also very stressful and you feel like there's deadlines and things all the time. So
Yeah, good points. Good practice for writing to a deadline. But yeah, you want to have some freedom to write when and how you like. So that's an
mhm.
interesting balance to strike. Well, when you do get stuck with your writing, how do you get going again?
uh Sometimes I don't. I usually just kind of work on something else, work on another project while waiting for inspiration to strike. But in some cases, it can be a very long time until inspiration strikes. Like for example, that story, The Wanderer, I haven't touched it since last year because I don't know where to go with it. But
Mhm.
hopefully, I can interact with the other Write Club members, get some inspiration, and start writing it again.
Yeah, and just give it some time. I'm a bit like you, Josh. I like to have a couple of different projects on the go at once so that I can shift over to another one if I get stuck. So I think that's probably a benefit of writing a few different things. So people write for lots of different reasons. But why do you write, Josh? Why is writing important to you?
I guess I like I don't want to go like too deep here, but I do like a break from real life sometimes, and being able to write just kind of gives me some peace of mind, I guess. So and it's nice to have that kind of escape, and like, and another reason is that whenever you're stressed and things feel like they're out of control, you can just go into your novel and you're the one in control, you're the one writing it. So it does feel good to kind of have that little escape and peace of mind that writing brings you.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely the best reason to write. That's brilliant. And what would your top tips be for a young person who wants to write but maybe isn't sure where to start?
I would actually say start by not like don't jump into it. Or if you have like an idea, just write it down and then start coming up with ideas. Like don't jump straight into it. That's just gonna make you burned out really quickly. What you want to do is like get a notepad, get a pen and paper, write down your idea and start elaborating on that. Build the world first and then populate that world by writing the story, like what I did with my first story. I drew the map, I designed the world, and then I wrote a story about it. So
That's a great tip. Thank you, Josh. Fantastic. And
mhm.
my last question is, can you recommend a great book for our listeners? Is there one that has been particularly inspired you?
I would say that one of the best books I've read in my kind of genre. It's actually quite funny. I wrote this before I read this book. I wrote The Wanderer before I read this book, And then I realized, wow, they're really similar. But it's The Martian by Andy Weir. It does have quite a few swear words in it, just in case you're sensitive to that kind of thing. But it is an amazing book. It's about an astronaut who gets stuck on Mars and has to survive there. And it's amazing. It's very sciencey. There's a lot of science involved, but it's really good. So I highly recommend that. And if you don't want to read it, it's on Audible as well, so you can listen to it on audiobook.
Oh, that's a great tip, actually. Yeah, I've seen the movie, but I hadn't read the book, so great recommendation. I'll check that out.
Yeah, everybody's watched the movie, but there is, without knowing that there's actually a book behind it, but there is actually a book behind it. And in my opinion, the book is actually a lot better because it does go into more detail about certain plot points and things, and it's really good.
I think it's a general rule in life that the book is always better than the movie.
I think that there are probably some exceptions. I'm not aware of any, but yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Josh. It's been a pleasure to talk to you about writing and to hear your work. And I really want to hear how that story ends. So I hope you'll continue it. Thanks so much for being with us today. And thanks everyone for listening. If you are a teen writer in Northern Ireland and you'd like to join a friendly and supportive writing group, then check out the Fighting Words Northern Ireland website. You'd be very welcome.